Comparative effects of traditional versus urban course design on pre-service special educators, culturally responsive teaching, self-efficacy, and outcome expectations by Drs. April L. Mustian and Stacey E. Hardin. Given the growing diversity of our K-12 student population and the continued disparities in equitable educational opportunities between students of color and their white counterparts, it is important that today's special educators be prepared to critically examine, reflect on, and use culturally responsive teaching with learners with diverse needs and from diverse backgrounds. There have been many researchers in the field who have evaluated culturally responsive teaching in teacher candidates and made recommendations for how teacher education programs should be infusing culturally responsive teaching into curricula and programming. Some of the literature that supports our current study includes the following. In 2007, Sawatu found that having more coursework with multicultural components increased cultural awareness, but teacher candidates need to learn more about how to perform culturally responsive teaching, which often require inactive and vicarious learning opportunities. More recently, in 2011, Sawatu, Fraser, Osagi, and Starker found that opportunities to observe and practice culturally responsive teaching, field-based experiences with Black students, and carefully structuring pre-service clinical experiences were recommended to improve the culturally responsive teaching of pre-service teachers. Additionally, Sobel, Gutierrez, Zion, and Blanchett in 2011 examined a curricular redesign with a focus on culturally responsive teaching and urban teaching, found that essential components needed in a successful program include community-based experiences, content about equity and social justice, and recruitment of diverse teacher candidates. Because we believe our Infuse course sequence has incorporated many of the recommended elements by researchers in the field, we felt it'd be a critical time to evaluate our program's effectiveness, both overall within the special education department and as a distinct urban course sequence. Therefore, our research questions are: Number 1, to what extent are student teachers in the special education program self-efficacious in culturally responsive teaching? Number 2, what are the culturally responsive teaching outcome expectations for student teachers? Number 3, are there differences in culturally responsive teaching, self-efficacy, and outcome expectancies among students who participated in the urban redesigned courses and those who participated in traditional preparation? And finally, number 4, is there a relationship across participants, culturally responsive teaching, self-efficacy, and expectancy outcomes, and how they respond to classroom vignettes involving racialized and cultural situations? Our target population is the 110 student teachers across all special education programs. Our aim is to have a sufficient response rate that allows us to analyze across independent samples of students who complete some level of Infuse course sequence versus those who did not. We are using 2 Likert scale surveys developed by Sawatu. The first is the Culturally Responsive Teaching Self-Efficacy Scale. It has 41 items and an internal consistency reliability of 0.96. The second is the Culturally Responsive Teaching Outcome Expectations. It has 26 items and an internal consistency reliability of 0.95. Our study also includes 8 classroom vignettes, which I will discuss on the next slide. Because we are employing survey methodology and because the surveys include Likert scales, experts in the field recommend the use of non-parametric statistical analyses. Additionally, non-parametric testing is most appropriate for self-perception skills as participants tend to respond in a manner that skews data, decreasing the likelihood that normality can be achieved. For the research questions related to comparing differences between independent groups, for example, students who participated in the infused courses versus those who participated in traditional courses, we will use the Mann-Whitney-U test. To examine relationships between our variables, for example, the culturally responsive teaching self-efficacy, outcome expectations, and vignette responses, we will use non-parametric equivalent to the standard correlation coefficient, which is the Spearman R. If we code the variables as categorical, we may also employ the chi-square test. Additionally, we will also compute descriptive statistics of location, for example, the mean, median, and mode. We will also compute dispersion, such as variance, average deviation, and the quartile range. We want to do this to make sure we provide a complete picture of our data. Our research extends previous research on the culturally responsive teaching self-efficacy survey by providing 8 classroom-based vignettes that require students to respond in a qualitative manner. These vignettes were created so that they increase the likelihood that participants could show evidence of culturally responsive teaching in their responses. An example of one of the vignettes is provided here. We have created an initial coding system to quantify open-ended responses to the 8 classroom vignettes, with a 0 indicating no evidence of culturally responsive teaching in the response and a 3 indicating multiple examples of culturally responsive teaching in the response. We will test this rubric out and refine it as necessary to ensure that it allows for high inter-rater reliability when scoring the vignette responses. Once responses are coded, we will conduct analyses of culturally responsive teaching responses to the culturally responsive teaching self-efficacy and the culturally responsive teaching outcome expectancy surveys to determine if any relationships or correlations exist among the 3 primary variables. This is related to research question 3. Despite sending our survey out to the student teaching listserv on 4 separate occasions within a 3-week time frame, our response rate was very low. Only 15 of 109 student teachers responded to the survey. Further, of the 15 respondents, not all fully completed the survey, and there were not enough non-infused students to make any kind of meaningful comparisons across independent samples. Due to the low response rate, we will be re-administering the survey to student teachers in the fall. We are currently strategizing how best to increase the response rate and will submit any changes as an IRB modification. We are considering having a gift card drawing for respondents who fully complete the survey. We are also trying to determine how we could have someone who is not a member of the research team to talk with student teachers about the study in a face-to-face format. This is a bit challenging because our student teachers leave the campus area and are placed all over the state, most of them going back to their hometowns. For any questions, please feel free to contact Dr. April L. Mustian or Dr. Stacey E. Hardin at the contact information posted here.